One single, forbidden moment that led us down a path neither of us could have ever imagined started on this particular night. It was so subtle, so quiet, that neither of us recognized it at first. But it was there, inside me, slowly, quietly, growing like a vine, wrapping itself around my thoughts, my desires. I remember the first time it hit me, like a bolt of lightning racing through my body. I couldn't control it. There was this urge, a need to be touched, to be desired, to feel wanted. And it wasn't enough to just have him. It was never enough. I needed more. I needed to feel the electricity of newness, of unpredictability, the touch of a stranger, the kiss of someone else, and then the desire became uncontrollable. It wasn't just men I was drawn to. It was everyone. It was anyone, women, strangers, even animals. My body yearned for something else, something beyond my husband's touch. I couldn't explain it, but I couldn't stop it either. At first, I tried to keep it hidden. I thought it was just a fleeting fantasy, something that would pass. But it didn't. It consumed me. And with every new experience, the craving only grew stronger. I saw him, my husband, through new eyes. His attempts to satisfy me only seemed to deepen my hunger. No matter how hard he tried, how much he gave, it was never enough. I needed something different, something wild. I remember the first time he noticed, the first time he caught me in the act. My eyes glazed over as I kissed a stranger in a dark alley, the taste of someone else's lips mingling with my own. I saw the pain flash in his eyes, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't pull myself away. I thought I was invincible, that I was in control of this hunger. But as I crossed more lines, as I indulged more deeply, I could see the damage I was doing to him. The man who had once been my everything was now a stranger to me, lost in the fog of his own confusion and hurt. He stayed silent for days, haunted by what he had seen. His body physically recoiled from me, even though his heart still longed to protect me. He couldn't understand it. Neither could I. But there was no escape from this insatiable desire. No matter how much we tried to go back to normal, I couldn't help myself. The more he tried to be everything I needed, the more distant I became. It wasn't just about sex. It was something deeper, something darker. I had opened a door, and now I couldn't close it. I pushed him to his breaking point. He stayed up late, staring at me in the dark, willing himself to satisfy me, trying different methods, trying to find the key to this new hunger inside me. But no matter what he did, no matter how he touched me, how he kissed me, how he tried to connect with me, it wasn't enough. I wasn't the same woman anymore. And that's when he started seeking help. It was in his eyes, the desperation, the silent pleading. He wanted to fix me, to save me, but he didn't know how. Our relationship had always been built on trust, on love, on mutual respect. But now it was built on something else, something darker, something neither of us understood. I watched as he sank deeper into his search for answers. First, he turned to books, reading anything he could find about the psychology of desire. Then it was therapy, couples therapy, spiritual healers, even friends and family who claimed to have the answers. But nothing worked. I could see the toll it was taking on him, on us. The more we tried to understand, the further apart we drifted. He began blaming himself. He thought it was his fault. He thought maybe he had failed me, that maybe he wasn't enough to keep me satisfied. His guilt ate him alive, and I could see the weight of it in his eyes every time he looked at me. But in his desperation, something strange began to happen. He started changing too. He started understanding things he never had before, about sexual energy, about power dynamics, about the importance of consent. He educated himself, not just for me, but for us. He wanted to heal, But the deeper he delved, the more I could sense him pulling away. He was lost in a world of theories, of trying to fix me, and I couldn't help but wonder, had he lost himself in the process? And then, one night, something happened. The healing process began when we met someone who seemed to understand me in a way no one else did. A counselor, a healer. I didn't know what she was, but she had a certain power about her. Her name was Lila, and when we first met, I felt something shift. She didn't judge me. She didn't make me feel dirty or broken. She simply listened. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't alone in this. I wasn't the only one with a hunger so powerful that it felt like a disease. Lila didn't try to fix me immediately. Instead, she helped me understand my desires. She talked to me about energy, about how sexual energy isn't just about physical pleasure. It's a force that can be harnessed, but also one that can consume you if left unchecked. It was through Lila that I began to realize that my hunger wasn't just about wanting something outside of my marriage. It was about trying to fill a void, something deep inside me that I had never acknowledged. And as I started to understand this, the cravings began to lessen. Not entirely, but enough for me to feel like I was in control again. But it was a long road, and it wasn't just about me healing. It was about my husband healing too. He had to come to terms with what had happened, with what I had done, and with his own role in our relationship. He had to understand that my actions weren't about him failing. They were about me not understanding my own needs, my own desires, and how to communicate them. Through this journey, he learned. He learned to listen, not just to my words, but to my body. He learned to understand the difference between love and desire, and he finally understood the importance of boundaries. And through it all, I learned to listen to myself. I learned that my desires weren't something to be ashamed of, but they had to be respected. I had to learn balance. It was months into our journey that the truth was finally revealed. The truth about what had triggered it all, the moment everything had changed. One evening, during a session with Lila, I relived that night, the night when everything had shifted. And that's when it hit me. It wasn't just the sexual energy. It wasn't just the forbidden desires that had driven me. It was the portal we had accidentally opened, an ancient force, a spiritual force that had latched onto me the moment we crossed that line. We had invited something darker into our lives, a power far beyond our understanding. It had been pulling at me, feeding off my desires, giving me what I thought I wanted. But in reality, it was feeding off my soul, leading me down a path of chaos and destruction. When I realized this, it was like a fog lifted. I understood now what had happened to me, to us, and for the first time in months, I felt a sense of clarity. It took a year and a half of intense healing, of understanding, of rebuilding trust. But in the end, we found our way back to each other. We learned to communicate, to connect, to heal. We had been through something extraordinary, something that could have torn us apart, but instead, it brought us closer. Now, we're stronger than we've ever been. We're raising our third child, and life is peaceful. But our journey didn't stop there. Together, we opened a consultancy dedicated to helping couples understand and explore their sexuality in healthy, respectful ways. We teach people how to navigate desire, how to communicate openly and honestly, and how to set boundaries that allow for true connection. Our story isn't just about the pain we went through. It's about how we came out stronger on the other side. It's about understanding, healing, and finding balance. And we're here to help others do the same. If you've resonated with our journey, if you've ever felt lost in your own desires or struggles, remember, you're not alone.